Thank you. Biddy, it's like this every day at Amherst College, so welcome. What a day. And apropos to that beginning, let me begin with two very simple words. Thank you. And thank you first and foremost to each of you that are here. One of the things, and I was just talking with Chuck Longsworth as we were walking in, and he was saying how these search processes are unbelievable experiences, and how one learns a huge amount through these processes about oneself, and most importantly about Amherst. And one of the things that I learned at the core about Amherst coming through this process is what an unbelievable community this is, and how each of you, through what you do every day, as well as clearly through the advice that you gave us as a search committee, both in our visiting tours as well as in the numerous emails and phone calls that we received, how you informed this process, and ultimately how you set a platform for what was a remarkable pool of candidates that we had the honor as a committee of spending time with, of learning from, and ultimately of helping bring us to this wonderful, happy day. So I begin by just saying thank you to each of you, both here at Johnson Chapel, as well as in the Amherst family across the country and across the world. I then move to saying thank you to, as I alluded to, an unbelievable committee. And I just would ask, take a moment and just acknowledge this. It was a remarkable experience. Joe Quinn sent an email, and I think it echoed a lot of the sentiment of everybody on the committee, just saying it was just one of the experiences of a lifetime, and in part because it represented the best of Amherst, and diverse committee in just about every way you might define that, and a committee that at the beginning of the day, at the middle of the day, at the end of the day, was exceptionally egalitarian. Everybody listened. When a member raised their hand and started talking about a perspective they had, it didn't matter who they were. Everybody listened, and everybody really took it on board as we formed really difficult judgments. And so this was an experience, and I just again would just say thank you to this committee, and thank you to all of you who helped select this committee. So just once again, thank you. I then, and a lot of words have been said over the last 8 months, but I want to just say once again to Tony, thank you. Clearly, and Amherst is as strong as it has ever been, is as well placed and as thoughtfully placed in both the world of higher education and just more broadly societally today. Than it was, and as strongly and as it's been over the last 8 years. And Tony has this favorite expression, or he's got many favorite expressions, but one of which is talking about raising the floor. And he has raised a lot of floors over this last 8 years. And I say this teasingly, but also seriously. Hopefully, Tony, 10 years from now, you'll be the first to come back and in your support of Biddy. Hopefully we'll have figured out a way to raise the floor on the presidency through this next 8 to 10 years. But if we do, it will be because of the example you've set and because of of where you have led us and where you have pushed us and where you have cajoled us in every good way, this college to today, which has allowed us to clearly have an unbelievable process and to select an exceptional individual. So, Tony, thank you, and I know you may want to say a few words.
Okay, so this is my last time in the chapel as president. Welcome, everyone. I really only want to say two things. One is to say the sign of a great institution that will continue to be a great institution is a succession process of its leadership that finds, in this instance, an improvement on the 18th president to be the 19th president. I could not be, Amherst could not be more honored than to have Biddy Martin as the 19th president of Amherst College. Biddy, you don't know this, but for 8 years now, I have welcomed incoming students and their family into the chapel with a poem that I love by Richard Wilbur, the greatest living poet in America, who happens to be a faculty member and an alum. And the poem was called The Writer. And I'm not going to read it to you, though I was tempted. But you all want to hear from Biddy, not from me or Richard today. The poem has a line that says, "I wish you a lucky passage," to his daughter. And concludes with the line, "I wish what I wished you before, but harder." May you grace this college as you will, as it deserves, and continue the great passage that we have seen for almost 200 years, and if, God willing, you will oversee the 200th anniversary of that celebration. Welcome to Amherst, Biddy Martin.
Thank you. So sorry for the tease, because we got one last pause before Biddy, and what wanted to do was to give you a sense as to how it is that Biddy came to be sitting on this stage today, and wanted to just take you back for a couple of moments to the search process. And you all will recall this began in October. We basically spent from October through the end of last year visiting with various members of the community. We then came back together in January, and we all worked for Cullen Murphy, who put together the remarkable definitional document that described Amherst. It helped us focus ourselves on what it was we were looking for, and helped as an introductory document for candidates. And then we began in the back half of February meeting with candidates. We took our committee and we broke ourselves into small groups, and they were ever-changing groups of 4 or 5 individuals, and we would send a scouting team, as we came to call the small groups, off to a city, to the West Coast, to the various parts of the Eastern Seaboard, and they'd spend a day meeting with different candidates. And through that process, we took what was a long list of names that had been developed by our search consultants, who are frankly the other party who I should have thanked at the beginning here, Isaacson Miller, who just did a remarkable job for us. So they developed a list. We took names that you all had shared with us, and we worked our way through those on paper, and then with the search, or these various scouting teams, through a list that increasingly narrowed, basically really beginning, let's call it in March, until a final decision right before commencement weekend. And so what I thought I would do is just, I went back into my email box and I pulled out, since nobody has, you all don't get enough emails, I thought I'd read you a couple of emails. And went back to March to give you a sense as to how Biddy ended up here in terms of the conversations and then some of the substantive issues that the committee saw. So this is an email from me to a woman named Pone Varho, who's one of our search consultants, in March. It's a long email talking about a number of different candidates, and it ends with the following sentence. So separately, where do things stand on trying to engage Biddy Martin? Sent it on a Tuesday afternoon at 1 p.m. At 1:20 p.m., she replies back, "Hi, G-Day. I don't believe that there's been any recent contact with Martin, but I'll check with John and make sure that one of us touches base with her before we get together on Sunday." I respond immediately back to her, "Thanks, Pone. Please do touch base with Martin and see what we need to do to get her into our process. The more I read about her, the more I like her." So they got the message. John Isaacson picked up the phone clearly that afternoon and called you, Biddy, because the next thing I got from John was the next morning an email that you had sent to him, which I apologize, but I'm going to read your email without permission. And especially in your case, very relevant, right? So Biddy writing back to John, says, yes. "Hi, John. Thanks for calling yesterday. I enjoyed talking with you. I did more thinking about Amherst last night. A great, unbelievable institution. However, I don't think I can make it out there on Friday. I promised the basketball team to go to New Orleans to see them play in the Sweet 16. They've dubbed me their biggest fan, and I have to live up to that this week." So we know where we stand. Okay? Then John sends an email to Susan Pecor. And where is Susan? Right there. And Susan, by the way, deserves a real round. Yes. Susan and Diane, if truth be told, and you've all figured this out a long time ago, Biddy would not be here without those two, both in terms of just their counsel and Susan, every time I wanted to do something stupid, basically setting me straight through this process. So, so this is an email from John Isaacson to Susan saying, "Susan," and he's talking about Biddy, "I think these delicate efforts are between you and Pone trying to line up all the stars to see if we can get Biddy together. This will be worse than most of them. With what's going on in Wisconsin, and Biddy's calendar is awful and can be interrupted by any number of matters. Just remember, she's a consultant to our process. She's not a candidate in our process. She's genuinely personable, knowledgeable, value committed, and experienced, and prepared to make us smart about our search. But we must be disciplined about her consultant status. So you're just here as the consulting president for the next decade. Just remember that." And then he goes on just to talk about just how confidentiality is key. As I read her email to you all, sorry. what ultimately got organized about a few weeks later from that was Biddy came to New York, and she and I met in my office. And so then I'm going to read you, so I'll read my own emails too, so it's balanced here. The email that I sent to John Isaacson Poney and to Susan Pecor after meeting with Biddy for the first time. So John and Poney, thanks for organizing my visit with Biddy. She was exceptional. I spent close to 2.5 hours with her. Biddy is the real thing, likely the strongest candidate I've seen to date. She's done everything required of an Amherst president. Now, apologies for my next line, but truth and transparency here. Shared governance at UW-Madison makes Amherst look like Disneyland. She is very nuanced in how she thinks about a number of important topics, from faculty renewal to diversity to making the case for the liberal arts. She rarely sounded off key, despite the enormous gulf between Cornell, UWM, and our small liberal arts college. She also did not fall into the trap of oversimplifying the smaller community that is Amherst when compared to Cornell or UWM. She made a decent case, still to be thoroughly tested, which was clearly passed with flying colors, for why she is attracted to Amherst. Biddy is now willing to meet with the scouting team, and we need to get on this ASAP. So the last set of comments I'm going to read you, and in this case I'll have to apologize to many members of the committee. So we sent a scouting team out then to visit with Biddy, and as it turned out, she was speaking at a conference in Washington, so the team went down to Washington. It was a team of 5 individuals, 2 trustees, a student, a member of the staff, and who am I? Oh, and a faculty member, a key faculty member. Actually, Susan and I spent a lot of time thinking about this, putting that team together, and it was about as diverse a team as you could get. Politically, every which way. It was deliberately, we wanted to try to get every kind of different perspective you might get. So I'm going to read you, without attribution to who's making the comments, but the narrative from the meeting that the scouting team had, the conversation the scouting team had after Biddy walked out the door. Because our search consultant literally would transcribe every conversation that we had as a committee, and so this comes from, these are word for word kind of transcription of what the committee said when you walked out the door, Biddy, that first time. First person says, I was impressed with her depth. Somebody else, I liked very much the sense that she sees Amherst as a place to go rather than Wisconsin as a place to leave. Another person says, I once worked for a president who, when he spoke, I found myself writing things down and keeping them. It would lead me to think of 6 other ways to solve problems that I had. I found that same sort of wisdom in her. Another person, I would like to just hear her keep on talking. I don't think I've been as drawn to listen as carefully to anybody else that we've met. Another person says, I think she's a stunning candidate. Somebody else, taken back by having been trumped by somebody saying she's a stunning candidate before he could said, I wanted to say that. If you stopped this process today and said, you have a job, we would have hit a home run. Another person, I felt that she'd opened the diary of Amherst College and read it. Just the little things that she noticed. She had researched us better than anybody else. My concerns about moving from a big place to a small place evaporated. She got it. Another person, I got what she said about the liberal arts, where she talked about loss. She talked about how you grow up in certain ways, in a certain way. When you come to a place like Amherst, you lose your illusions. She is a true intellect. She was so honest. I think the candor is one of her strengths. She is graceful, direct, and subtle. Another person says, she doesn't come off as a bureaucrat. I had that worry. She is a brilliant administrator with a long time in the job, but she doesn't come off with a lot of management speak. She seems to be very close to the academy. It's a really impressive balance. Another person, she's a humanist who can really talk about science. She's articulate about science in a way that I didn't expect. And she does not feel like she's on a soapbox when she talks about it. She moved easily and comfortably from one sphere to another. Another person says, she returned several times to the idea of helping people flourish. She used the theme when talking about students, when talking about staff, when talking about faculty. Another person said she will encourage people to be honest about what they think. She's not just a facilitator of conversation. She will draw people out and get them to their better self. And then it closed with somebody saying she is genuine. So I will close with one last email, which was from John Isaacson, who is about as seasoned a search consultant as you're going to find, and throughout this process was generally completely unflappable. But coming out of this scouting team meeting, John sent me a single 5-word email to sum up how he thought that first meeting with Biddy had gone. Home run, total home run. Biddy Martin.
Thank you. I can't help but start by saying I thought when I left Wisconsin and moved to Massachusetts, the open records law no longer applied. For those of you who don't get that, I didn't know my emails would be read out loud to the public. I'm delighted to be here, really honored to be here, and I'm honored that so many of you on a June summer day, a beautiful day, would come to meet me. Thank you very much. I should start by thanking Judith Zeitlin. I don't know in my life that I've ever met a more thoughtful, kinder, smarter, or a better ambassador for any institution than he has been for Amherst. The same could be said for your search committee. They were great representatives of what Amherst is, and so compelling, in fact, that though I wasn't looking to move, I was completely compelled to come to Amherst. I want to thank the search committee for their welcome and their help. I too want to thank Susan and Diane and the staff, whose names I don't yet know, because they have made it entirely easy to get through this process despite everything that's going on in the state of Wisconsin. I'm honored to be the 19th president of Amherst College. This is the best opportunity I can possibly imagine because of Amherst's quality, its history, its beauty, its extraordinary students, its talented faculty, its great staff, and because of what you value, which is, as I said in a letter some of you will have written, the intimate art of teaching combined with great research, sound research across a wide range of domains, the integration of fields, a community in which specialization is still combined with the possibility of thinking broadly across domains, and of instilling in young people a love of learning, but also a love of thought, a dedication to thought, and to pushing the boundaries of thought. I'm delighted at the prospect of being part of an intellectual community as strong as this one, where scholarship, teaching, learning, and thinking together as a way of building something great still matter. I have been embroiled in a very complicated set of political conflicts in Wisconsin, as has everyone in the state of Wisconsin. And one of the things I thought when I was being driven from Bradley Airport last night and came across the bridge into Hadley and saw the full moon over the water, and have this morning already been treated to such a gorgeous day and campus and space as this, it's wonderful that I'll be able to combine what I think of as the poetic with the political. I'm always reminded of the words of the French-Algerian writer Hélène Cixous, who wrote that the political without the poetic kills, and the opposite is also true. This is the community of poetry, where both political engagement and the poetic matter, and it matters that they're related with one another in ways that push all of our thinking and also all of our spirits. I grew up in a rural community in Virginia, in a family that didn't think education was a good thing for girls. They thought maybe it was the ruination of girls. And as I said to the search committee, they may think they were right. It's hard to say. But I managed, by virtue of great teachers and a guidance counselor, to get to the College of William and Mary, where I got my education. And doing my due diligence about Amherst has taken me back to my memories of being a first-year student at William and Mary, to the English classes I had with Morris Rabinowitz, and the German courses with Elsa Didak, and to the opportunity to study abroad, and to the ways in which my life completely changed by virtue of that opportunity and the kind of education I got. Jide referred to what I said about loss. Because of the kind of background I came from, my liberal arts education opened up worlds to me that put quite a gulf between me and my family. And when I was talking with the search committee, I was simply saying that one needs to think about education as an unlearning as well as a learning. It's not just about acquisition. It can be about a radical break. It can be about loss. It's a profound experience, one that's something like sacred, but also entails often something like loss. A complicated thing, an amazing thing, and something that we need to protect and enhance and continually transform for the good of Amherst, for the good of young people, for the good of ourselves, for the good of the world. I would not have been interested in Amherst had it not been for the remarkable achievements of all of you under the leadership of Tony Marks and your board to create forms of diversity on this campus that are virtually unparalleled on campuses in the United States. To live and study and work and build relationships with people from every conceivable background is the only way to live. And in the 21st century, it's the only way to thrive. And it's the only way fully to be alive, in my view. I congratulate Tony. I congratulate the board. I congratulate all of you. What I'm thinking as I stand here is that I got a tour of this chapel when there was no one in it. It's a far more beautiful thing with all of you here. And I just feel the urge to get here and find out who all of you are. I've read a lot of course descriptions of the faculty. I read one again last night that I loved, where one of you, who may or may not be in the room, described changing what you teach as an anxiety-filled experience that your son had compared to vine swinging. Having let go of the one vine and not yet having the support of the next. Probably coming here will feel a little bit like that in some ways, and I appreciate your warm welcome and your support, I look forward to being part of your community, and I'm honored to join you. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. I'm asked to take questions. And so this is the fun part. I'm delighted to take questions or comments or whatever you'd like to do now. Would be fine. Yes. Will you tell me who you are?
I will. My name's Gavin Crump. I'm in the class of 12, which makes me a senior now, which is freaking me out a little bit. Oh, okay. First question. I really enjoyed that story about the way that you turned the search committee down or the trustee down for the basketball game. I think that shows really admirable priorities. I do. And I am just curious as to what you see your role as in terms of student life here at Amherst.
Well, thank you for endorsing those priorities. I thought as G-Day was reading that this is really, a bad impression potentially. But I think the greatest joy I've experienced at the University of Wisconsin is my interaction with students. And interestingly, one has, at least at large universities, a great deal more opportunity to spend time with students as a chancellor or president than as provost. I was provost at Cornell for 8 years, and I had been a faculty member at Cornell for a long time. What I love about being a chancellor or president is the opportunity to get to know students. One of the appeals of Amherst is the extraordinary quality, the creativity, the talent, the seriousness, and also what I've gathered from reading student newspapers and other things, the fun of the students at Amherst. And I hope that I will have, and then I'm confident that I will have even closer relationships with students than I was able to have at a place as large as Wisconsin. Someone did say to me the other day before a news conference that I probably know 2,000 students at Wisconsin, and that consequently I'll be able to get to know all the students at Amherst. And that would be wonderful, though it's hyperbole, obviously. If I could get to know every student at Amherst, it would be a deep and lasting pleasure, I know. Students are fun. The purpose of these jobs, and I was cited as saying this in my view, is the opportunity to facilitate the flourishing of others, and that includes faculty, staff, and indicatively students, young people. That's why it's a joy to be in this line of work, or to have this calling, as some of us think of it, more than just work. And I look forward to doing whatever I can. I hope I'll live up to your expectations when it comes to what I can do to help you flourish.
We're all really excited for you to come here, and I think we want to make your transition as easy as possible. So what do you think is going to be the hardest part of going from UWM to Amherst, and what can we do to help you be happy?
Oh, what's your name?
Rachel Brickman. I'm a senior.
Senior, Rachel, nice to meet you. That's so kind. Well, there's lots of packing to do, and I'm just kidding. I would never ask students to pack, although one of the students at Wisconsin, who's become a very close friend of mine because he's helped me train my dog. And by the way, I don't know if dogs are allowed on campus. I'm guessing. Yes? Oh, sorry. I walked right into that one. Well, I have a 6-pound little toy poodle because I'm allergic to other breeds, whose name is Oscar, and I'll do what's right. I'll do what's right. But in any case, there's a student at Wisconsin who's helped train Oscar because I apparently didn't set the appropriate boundaries. And he has volunteered to help me pack, so that'll be the packing. That is you know what will help make the transition easier for me is getting to know you, and getting to know you as quickly as it makes sense to get to know people. I will want to have you over to this most beautiful house I've virtually ever seen, and get to know you, because for me, it's really human to human interaction and friendship that will make me feel at home. It is very different. I have said on many occasions, I think people exaggerate the difference between private and public institutions, and even between small and large institutions. Virtually every sector of higher ed today faces challenges of a similar sort. How do we balance access and affordability with quality? And institutions that are smaller, private, come at it from a different point than those that are large public research universities, but the questions are surprisingly similar. And virtually every public university in the country is actually a hybrid of private and public sources of revenue and missions. So it will certainly be a transition, but I'm not so worried about the transition from large to small or public to private. It's just a matter, in any case, no matter the institution's size or mission and history, of getting to know the people and the place and the culture. And anything you can do just to be candid with me and help me get to know you will be the best possible thing. I know that we probably won't go to the Sweet 16 in basketball. On the other hand, our women's basketball team did win the national championship, and as a former basketball player, and by our, I mean your, but soon it'll be mine, and I'm a crazed sports fan. And I grew up in the rural South where only high school football and basketball really mattered. And I am really delighted that sports, that athletics and competition are so important at Amherst. And I look forward to watching you compete. I believe one of your students, one of our students now, was just named the Athlete of the Year in Division III. I don't know if she's here, but in any case, that's a wonderful, wonderful achievement. So I look forward to the games and the performances. This is also a singing college, and there's nothing I love better than choral music and a cappella groups. And so there are many ways to make me happy. There are really many ways to make me happy. Just be nice to Oscar, and that'll be a big part of it. Maybe just little dogs on campus. I know. There was a whole debate about chairs on the quad, so the idea of dogs is it's going a little far. Just kidding, you all. Any other questions or comments or concerns? Yeah.
My name's Floyd. I grew up in Virginia as well.
You did?
Yeah, and before I transferred here, I went to Virginia Tech for a while.
Oh, really?
And one of my, I guess, things that I've noticed is coming from there is a difference in principles and what you instill in the faculty to, better teach and, educate and kind of relate to students. What do you think would probably be your most driven thing that you want to instill within the faculty to kind of benefit us? What are you seeing as a bigger ideal to kind of instill with them to help us out?
Oh, that's a great question. So you're thinking about the distinction between Virginia Tech and Amherst.
what to instill within the faculty, whereas there at a large institution, it's very driven based on budgetary concerns or things like big picture things. It's not mainly on an individual level, whereas Amherst, you have the opportunity to meet on individual levels. So are there things that you think you might change or things that you look for here to kind of instill within the faculty at like a smaller institution?
Well, to start, I'm so enamored of the faculty's dedication to teaching and to students and to those smaller group and individual to individual interactions, and to the ways in which the faculty here, whose work in the humanities I know better as yet than the work of some of the faculty in other domains, but whose research is so strong. And it's the integration of those two things that I think gives students the greatest opportunity to become thinkers in their own right, to become original thinkers in your own right. So I wouldn't come in saying I have something brand new to try and instill in the faculty. I need first to learn from the faculty, from the staff, from the students, what your challenges are, what you think the opportunities are for the college, and what your aspirations are. It's not that I have no ideas about the kinds of things that Amherst could do and be, and I'm here in order to try and help lead the way in some of those things. I think having the diversity you have is extraordinary, and I think the question of how best to take advantage of the kind of diversity that really ought to be the signature of every campus is a very important question. How to serve perhaps even more visibly as a model in that way. As far as teaching goes, I would like to visit classrooms, but I'm not sure on this campus with the intimacy of the teaching environment that I'll be welcome in all of them, and I would understand that. But having read some of the course, well, I think almost all the course descriptions, and having thought about the ways in which faculty and students interact here, I would love to try, at least initially, to be part of some of those interactions so that I get a better sense of what's great and with your help, what could also be enhanced. Things can always be made better, no matter how great they are, and I believe it's always our duty and our pleasure to find what those things are that could be made better, even at a place as great as Amherst. But we'll want to do that together. I have the feeling I'm giving very long answers. I apologize. It's probably because we're from Virginia. Southerners like to talk. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Brendan.
Hi, Brendan.
I'm following you on Twitter now.
Oh, you are?
Yeah. I'm at one and only Burke if you want to follow me. But
I would love to follow you.
So that seems like a pretty good way to communicate with a lot of people at a really big university like UWM.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering how you think you might communicate with faculty, administration, staff, and students here to learn a lot of these things that you want to know about us.
Oh, good question, Brendan. So are you saying that Twitter is probably not the best way here? It's pretty good too? Okay. Yeah, the Twitter thing is very interesting to me. Well, I'm hoping to interact with people here face to face. So what I foresee on this beautiful campus is wandering around and finding you and sitting and talking with you and watching you do what you do and visiting some labs and, as I said, maybe if invited, visiting some classrooms. I imagine having you over to my house or having a kind of picnic of the sort we're about to have apparently, where we have opportunities to interact. I would like to teach and get to know some of you even much better by virtue of that. I'd love to have you come visit me in my office and talk to me about your work and your hopes and your challenges. So I'd say a lot more face-to-face than is possible on a campus with 42,000 students and 2,500 faculty and many thousands of staff, and that's a great appeal of this position. But I will use Twitter because I find it interesting, and I love to interact with students in the ways students like to interact. Now, the students at Wisconsin would tell you I don't really interact the way they interact. They are constantly correcting me on Twitter and telling me what I failed to do. You don't know how to use hashtags, you don't do this, you don't do that. And it's true, I'm not that good, but I try. Also, you'll find perhaps, I don't know whether it's necessary here because we can gather in a different way, but I'm known at Wisconsin for very long emails, email updates and email explanations of what seems important to me. And I always get many emails back from students saying, Chancellor Martin, your emails are too long. So we'll find the best ways to interact. I look forward to it, and you'll coach me. Yes. Hi. So we have 2 questions. Go ahead. I'm not doing a good job of fielding them. Go ahead. Up in the balcony. Scream.
I'm Rob. I'd like to, if you could talk a little bit about the relationship of the college to the town.
Well, now you're finally going to get a shorter answer. Because there I have to say, honestly, I don't yet know enough to give you a very interesting or thoughtful response. There is no, I will say this, there is no campus in any town or city that does not need to tend to its relationships with that town and that surrounding area and take part in the citizenship that's required to ensure that the area does well, that the school system does well, and that we are great neighbors. So those are principles. I have principles I can articulate, but I can't yet say anything concrete. Ask me again when I've had even more time to learn, and maybe you'll come see me and tell me why it's a concern of yours. Yeah.
So I heard today talk about shared governance, and I just wanted to speak to let you know how much we appreciate, the staff appreciates Kate and Suzanne's participation in the committee, and that we're very eager to have a place in shared government at Amherst. Just letting you know.
I'm accustomed to everyone wanting to have a role in shared governance, and indeed, it's extraordinarily important. And Amherst is known, as is UW-Madison, for the benefits of shared governance and faculty governance, perhaps here in particular. Every part of the community is critical to the success of the community. So that includes students, staff, faculty, alumni, board members, larger community members who are affected by the college and hopefully drawn into it. And we will make sure that we operate as a community. And, sure.
I know it's getting time. Could you just tell us a story that will help us understand a little bit about who you are as a leader, who you are as a person, that would just help us get to know you?
A little story. Well, that's a very good and hard question. Who I am now as a leader. Maybe you're asking, or you might be especially interested in what kind of leadership style I have. Is that what you really want to know? So I said something to the search committee that I think amused them, and I said, I think it's very important for a president to be something between a mere recording device for the opinions of the committee of the whole on the one end, and a dictator on the other. That is, if one wants only a recording device for what everyone else thinks, you don't need a president. If you want only a president or only the president's ideas, then you don't need the rest of the campus. I'd put myself probably very much in the middle of those two extremes. I'm a person who really believes that the most interesting intellectual exercise in virtually any domain is about finding balance. And usually finding balance is not as simple as it sounds because it entails dealing with a range of variables. It's never just two. And so I think of administration as being an interesting intellectual exercise. If I didn't, I would never have gone into it. When I went into administration at Cornell, my faculty colleagues said to me, "Why would you do that?" When I became provost at Cornell, it was like going back to school. I was like a kid in a candy store. I got to know what was going on in disciplines I hadn't touched since I was in college. Being in administration is, if one approaches it that way, an unbelievably interesting challenge. It's only interesting if the people with whom you're trying to make good things happen are engaged, because only then is it really an intellectual conversation of the sort I love. So I think that's not a total answer. We'll see as we go, but I would say that there are people who think that a committee of the whole in institutions that are complex, and even though Amherst is smaller, it's still complex, that a committee of the whole should decide everything, and there are people who think that there should be so much hierarchy that the administration decides everything and then everyone should be happy about it. And neither of those models works in an institutional setting, in my view. And it will depend on the issue and the context of where we are in relation to those two poles on any given item. You can count on me always to want to discuss things and to be willing to listen and to love disagreement. I also love kindness and civility. And I think it's extremely important to be able to disagree about important things in ways that are not damaging. And I hope for that kind of community here. So, thank you very much.
Before we all head down for lunch, we have a handful of welcoming gifts for you, Biddy. Yes, and so the first you have around your neck from the search committee. The next you mentioned the Amherst women's basketball team, and so we, in the minutes between when you mentioned that and now, rushed out, and we first want to present you with the following.
Oh, what is it? Is there anyone here on the women's basketball team? All right.
Secondly, you mentioned the importance of football back in Virginia. So we thought we would.
What about the 126th meeting with Williams? Will we win? Is it a home game or an away game?
It's away.
I know not everyone in academics is a football fan, but I am. Both my brothers were football coaches. This is going to be a much better color for me than red.
And then finally, staying with the theme, one last, and we'll be happy, by the way, to keep these safely here when you go back to Wisconsin for the last week or two. But
Now, I may
here's
want to take one.
take it. There you go.
I'm wondering if my wardrobe has seemed a little bit lacking. Okay, I'm having a hard time with this one. Oh, wow. Perfect.
See you all at lunch at Valentine on the quad there. Thank you.